Thank you for tuning in to our community meeting via online, which is not something that we planned during the fire events, but obviously COVID-19 has taken over somewhat from what we were experiencing earlier this year. I also particularly want to acknowledge and welcome Mr. Shane Fitzsimmons, the Commissioner of Resilience New South Wales, to our meeting tonight. Before I commence the meeting, I'd also like to acknowledge the country or the countries that we're meeting on tonight, and with everyone being on different devices in different locations, I'm sure we're meeting on a number of Aboriginal countries. But for us, we're the traditional lands of the Gundungurra people and the Dharawal people, and I pay my respects and our respects to elders past and present. And I also extend that welcome acknowledgement to Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islander people who are tuning into this meeting. So the purpose of the meeting is to engage with our community again since the fires and from earlier meetings that we held in February this year. And we've got a series of meetings over the next few weeks to go through a number of different things that we're doing at the moment and to touch base with the community. So this is an hour-long meeting. There's a number of guest speakers that will speak and give updates on various aspects of what they're involved with the community. The last 15 minutes of the session will be a question and answer session, and there are opportunities for you through the chat line on this to write some questions down. We have a couple of people here that will take notes of those questions and we'll read those out. If we don't get time to read out and answer those questions in the session, we'll be certainly putting those together and emailing out that question answer sheet later on, as well as putting it on our website. Some questions have already been sent in as well prior to the meeting. So without further ado, I would like to now invite Mr. Shane Fitzsimmons, Commissioner of Resilience New South Wales, to share with us for the next 10 minutes or so his role as the Commissioner and how his department, etc., will look after the rebuilding and resilience going into New South Wales for the next however long. So Mr. Fitzsimmons.
Good afternoon, Mark, and thank you very much for the opportunity to join you and the communities across the Wingecarribee. Firstly, can I just reiterate my sincere admiration and appreciation for all that Council did, and most importantly, the community did right throughout this most awful bushfire season that we experienced this last season. Unprecedented in so many ways, not only in terms of fire behaviour, fire spread, duration and longevity, but also, of course, the consequential damage and destruction that's been occasioned right across parts of New South Wales, including the Wingecarribee. And my heart continues to be with everybody affected, and I do look forward in my new role particularly to getting out and visiting council and some of the affected areas to see firsthand how recovery and rebuilding is continuing. So I have accepted a new role in government, and I've started that role on the 1st of May. The government has created a new organisation called Resilience New South Wales, and it effectively has the responsibility for being the state's lead agency when it comes to disaster planning and preparedness, and importantly, of course, the recovery and rebuilding efforts. And the first big 3 priorities I was given by the Premier and the head of Premier and Cabinet in taking on the new role, the first 3 priorities were recovery, 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 and that all predated the extraordinary implications of the COVID-19 response effort as well. So as an organisation, we are positioned in the Department of Premier and Cabinet, and that's deliberate to ensure that we have reached right across government, through government, and out through to local council, local communities, through to the national level of government, and non-government organisations, industry and business, to ensure that we can assist and facilitate the best-led recovery. And the best-led recovery is that recovery that is locally led, community-led, council-led across New South Wales. And whilst we've seen an unprecedented fire season resulting in extraordinary damage and destruction, we've also seen that matched with unparalleled, unprecedented assistance and support mechanisms and packages being provided to people right across New South Wales. And we are mindful, and we need to be forever mindful, that it's not just about the bushfires. Whilst there is absolutely and necessarily a focus, many people affected by the bushfires were also already terribly affected by the drought over a long and building period. And then we also saw in a number of areas floods and storms impacting on top of the bushfires. And now, of course, we've all got the extraordinary implications of the COVID response effort, and now the easing of restrictions and the re-energising, restarting and rebuilding of the economy, of social cohesion and well-being for people right across the state. At the moment, we're responsible for reporting to the Premier, which ensures it gets the highest attention in New South Wales. Also reporting to the Deputy Premier, who's got the lead responsibility for the bushfire recovery effort. And we also report to the Minister for Emergency Services on matters of emergency management policy planning and coordination. So as the lead disaster management agency, we're also responsible for leading and coordinating and supporting the recovery and rebuilding effort. And at the heart of that are people and people affected, whether they're individuals, families, primary producers, business owners, local communities, people affected and affected by the compounding effect of these disasters, working with local council. And I commend the Wingecarribee Council for the work they're doing and leading at the local level. And our teams are in there working with council and working with community to ensure we're accessing and sponsoring through the assistance measures, the assistance packages being channeled through the state government and also the Commonwealth. And we're meeting very regularly with the Commonwealth and with some of the extraordinary work of the contractors and non-government organisations that have been engaged to do particular work. And what I mean by that is the extraordinary investment in the clean-up work and helping to clear properties and clear whether it's the home properties or some businesses, helping people make another very difficult step in that journey to recovery and healing, but also to some of the non-government organisations, small, medium and large alike, for their partnership and their assistance in temporary accommodation, portable living facilities that they can put on their block whilst they work out how to rebuild and replace their home on location. Of course, there are lots of buildings and other things to be repaired, to be replaced, to be rebuilt. But there is no doubt the big challenge for everybody is the emotional and psychological well-being, the health, the mental health, the mental fitness of everybody that's been affected, not just by one event, but by the implications of compounding events. And working very closely with the state and national health and care facilities and support facilities, non-government organisations, in trying to look at what works appropriately at local levels to ensure we're reaching out and connecting with as many people as we possibly can to help them help them on this journey. And I think particularly for a lot of areas as we get out and travel and visit around, is that we, as a culture, as a community, through the Wingecarribee, but through everywhere else, there's a lot of pride that's inherent, particularly in landholders and more regional, rural type communities. But generally speaking, it's everywhere. There is a pride. There is a sense of I will get through this. I'm not going to take handouts from anybody. I'm doing okay. And the reality is, I don't know how anyone can get through the last fire season and not be personally affected, particularly when they've lost so much. They've lost everything they've ever worked for, or indeed they might have lost loved ones. So we do need to be very mindful of being open and honest and normalising the discussion about how we're feeling, about how people are travelling and how they're going, and work together as communities, as families, as council groups. Together builds resilience. Communities coming together, sharing together, working together, prioritising the effort together is how we start building resilience in the recovery and reshaping post such extraordinary damages and implications from the fires. So I'm very proud to be part of a great team that's focused on that work. It's a significant undertaking, and it's not a body of work that's going to be resolved in the coming weeks or months, but we're talking about years of investment and commitment and support that will be needed to help thousands and thousands of people on their journey to recovery, to rebuilding, and most importantly, to healing. So thank you very much for being able to join tonight. I'm assuming that's pretty close to 10 minutes, but I'm more than happy to take questions as we get through the evening. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Shane. And if anyone has got any questions, if you post those up, and we'll bring those up towards the end of the session. It was remiss of me to not formally introduce myself as well. I remembered, I tend to forget to do so, but my name is Mark Pepping, and I am the Deputy General Manager at the Council. I'll give a bit. We've got a couple of other speakers, so we will have some. We've got Jacinta and Holly from Lang O'Rourke. We've got Karen Ackhurst from Red Cross and Tanya Smith from Community Links. Just before we get to those speakers, I just thought I'd give a bit of an update on where the council's at with a number of different teams that we have working with different aspects and clean-up, etc. So the first thing that I've got here is to talk about is tree removal, and that is certainly a significant issue amongst our community in the fireground areas. Council over the next 6 to 8 weeks will be spending quite a bit of time cleaning up further fallen trees and dangerous trees, dead trees that are still standing as well, and that'll be in both the firegrounds of the Greenwattle Creek as well as the Moreton fire. So we should see a lot of that work completed by the end of July, weather permitting, of course. I know there is still quite and having spoken with a number of other council areas, the trees existing and remaining on private property is an area that requires some attention, and I think that the levels of government need to look to that, and we've put it on the agenda for further discussion as well. I guess there's a lot of people have started to have their ruins and sheds and buildings and houses and all that cleaned up. The next phase for a lot of those people will be lodging development applications. Now, we to date there was about 300 properties that estimated or a bit over that were affected, had some level of destruction of buildings on their particular properties. So far, we've had about a dozen development applications, which includes about 4 dwelling houses. 2 of those have been approved and the other 2 are under assessment. We've had a number of minor outbuilding replacements that have been lodged and approved as well. One of the positives out of this process was the quick actions of the Department of Planning, Industry and Environment that enabled a lot of those replacement buildings to be replaced as exempt development and also temporary accommodation. And so whilst there was a lot of outbuildings particularly, that were destroyed, more than likely a lot of those replacements will be able to be done without any development applications. But at our future meetings, the next one being on the 2nd of July, and I'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later, but there will be a focus on development application process. But if anyone in the meantime has got any questions, they can ring 1800 316 500, and that number will just explain what you want to discuss, and you'll be put through to a team of our planning staff that will assist you in any inquiries that you have regarding rebuilding. We also have an information sheet which is available on our website that will enable you to read through and ask and prepare yourself for any of those questions. The next thing is a survey, and some of you that have, or all of you that would have lost your residential building, your house, would have received an invitation to participate in a survey that is being done by both council and together with Service New South Wales. We've got a number of surveys back, but we will be following up with people that were invited to participate in that survey. So we'll be ringing people up from tomorrow just to make sure that they do complete that survey, which will help us to resolve some of the issues that might still be apparent. There is no time frame for that, and if you have difficulties with the survey doing it online, again, if you'd like to ring council, or we'll be in touch to work out another way of actually completing that survey. The next thing is there's a program of funding that's been announced by the federal government under the National Bushfire Recovery Agency. There's funding in excess of $448 million that's been announced by the federal government. That program, we understand, is scheduled to commence from the 1st of July this year. At this point in time, we don't have guidelines about the programs themselves, and there's a number of sub-programs within that, but we are aware that this money is there. And once we receive the details of that, we'll be certainly looking through that to work out how and where that would best suit our community. So, and we'll talk about some of the other more direct grant assistance and financial assistance that other that individuals will be accessible to as well. And just as another one, there's a community recovery hub review, which through the Greenwattle Creek bushfire. So this will only be for our residents in the Buxton, Balmoral, hilltop localities affected by the Greenwattle Creek, as well as the Wombian Caves, Bulio areas to the west of our shire. 5:30 to 7:30 next week, in conjunction with Wallandilly Shire Council and Wingecarribee Council. There's a workshop. It is in person at Tarmore Country Women's Association Hall in 98 York Street, Tarmore, or you can do it via Zoom. And you can call to register for that on 4677 9662, or you can get onto this website, this email address, events, events @wallandilly.nsw.gov.au, and then you'll receive an invitation via Zoom to participate on that. And that's being held next Wednesday, the 24th of June, 5:30 to 7:30. Okay, well, the first of our guest speakers will be from Lane O'Rourke. So we've got Jacinta Spies and Holly Love, who will talk about their process and the progress that they've had within Wingecarribee for the clean-up. So, Jacinta.
Great. Thank you very much, Mark, and thank you for having us here tonight, and particularly thank you to all the community members that are joining us. You have been incredibly welcoming with us in your community, and it's been lovely to work with you. So my name's Holly. I am the team leader for the Central Region, which runs from Sydney out to the Blue Mountains down to the Queanbeyan sort of area. And Jacinta has been our person on the ground in the Wallandilly and Wingecarribee area. So most of you have probably heard about the program. Basically, it doesn't matter whether you're insured or uninsured. If you register through Service New South Wales, we will clean up bushfire affected homes and sheds, outbuildings, things like that. And we're particularly interested, I guess, in also small businesses and primary producers and how we can help them out as well. So when we first started this program, we had over 270 registrations in the in this LGA, and Jacinta will talk a little bit to where we're up to in that cleanup process. But it's safe to say that we have contacted and done inspections with everyone that was registered, except for a handful of people that we're trying to track down, I guess. So we've done a little bit of work with council on that, and we've also been working with sort of the local branches of Service New South Wales and things like that. So if you're on the line tonight and you think that maybe you haven't heard from us, or you have friends or neighbours that you think would benefit from the cleanup, we'd very much like to hear from you. And but the program hasn't shut by any stretch, so you can still encourage people you might know to register for a chat with us about what a cleanup might look like. The other piece of work that we've done recently is to match where we knew that materials was bushfire affected. So there's a piece of work that happens after a bushfire where many different government agencies go around and document that and track it. Where we knew a property was bushfire affected, but we didn't have a registration. We've done some work trying to track people down in that way. So talking to different government agencies and council as well. So we have managed to pull a few people out using that process. But yes, as I said, please let us know if there's anyone that we should be talking to. Jacinta, would you like to talk a little bit about where the works are up to?
Yes, so on the list, thanks Holly, hi everyone in the community, thanks for having us. But yeah, on our list we had, so we had about 131 that we signed the deed of release with, which meant that we could then do the works on. Of those, we've cleared about 110, a little more than 110, so we've done quite a few of those. We're at the tail end really. Really, the main areas left are those tricky access areas. So that's Wombeyan Caves, Goodman's Ford, and like Holly mentioned, there's a few of the other areas we're just trying to chase up, make sure we have contacted everyone. And yeah, like Holly mentioned, it is just those unregistered properties we're trying to make contact with to get them on board and make sure we've targeted everyone we can in the area. So apart from Wombeyan Caves, Goodman's Ford, a few in Merilla, yeah, we're kind of finishing up in the area, which is great, and it's good to hear the feedback with people that are happy with the works that we've done, and we'll just try and smash through these Wombeyan Caves and Goodman's Ford area. Very tricky because there's difficult access and there's a few rivers to cross, but we're making progress, and hopefully we've reached out to everyone and helped everyone that we can.
Thank you, Holly. Thank you, Jacinta. And I think the message is it is still only the middle of June, and hopefully the people that do need that assistance with the cleanup have made those connections. But obviously within communities, there's still a lot of people that are still a little bit, I guess, shell-shocked by what happened back in December and January. And a lot of people we found have had it difficult to try and come back to the community. So we've certainly encouraged as many people as possible, particularly that are still living in community, to reach out to anyone that they know that are living away. If we can all work together and between community members, council, etc., we can hopefully get in touch with all those people. And when I said 300 properties, I guess within the fire area, there's about 300 properties that had some degree of damage. Not all of those lost buildings or structures or anything, but certainly had some degree of impact by those fires. Again, if anyone's got any questions for Jacinta and Holly, please get onto the chat area and write those questions down. So I now call on Karen Ackers from Red Cross just to give a bit of an update on how the Red Cross are helping within the areas. They've done a fantastic job, and I know a lot of the staff there have been working really hard and I guess made a lot of friendships within the community. So we're very appreciative of what Geraldine and her team and Karen and your team and everyone else has done. So I'll hand it over to you, Karen. Oh, you're on mute, Karen.
That helps, doesn't it? Thanks, and thanks again for having me as well. And absolutely, yes, we're very proud of the work that our volunteers have done. And we were very present during the fires, during the evacuation process, manning the centres, the recovery centres, and the volunteers and staff have done an amazing job to date. With regard to the grants, over 200 million has been donated to Red Cross from the community for bushfire grants, and of that, over 73 million has already been dispersed. That's over $1 million a day. So, and I say this, I just got an alert this afternoon that there's going to be an announcement regarding a change to grants in the next couple of days. So what I'm about to tell you might completely change, but as at the moment, we're looking at the remaining balance. Around 22 million will be dedicated for people who haven't come forward yet. 59 million set aside for people who are looking to rebuild their homes. 18 million is for community recovery programs, and another 28 million or so for unmet needs that we don't know exist yet. We are particularly concerned at the moment about people who haven't come forward yet, and that includes people who may have been living in mobile homes and caravans and living off grid. So we're really keen to make contact with those people and support them to apply for the grants, because they too are entitled to Red Cross grants. So up to $50,000 is available to people who lost their primary place of residence who were owner occupiers. That's through 2 grants. I won't complicate things by going further, but up to $50,000 for people who were renting either homes or living in tents, caravans, sheds. They are also entitled to up to $30,000 in grants through 2 grants. There's $7,500 available to people who suffered injuries and were hospitalised during the fires, and $5,000 repair grant, which is for structural damage and also includes water, septic, power damage and those sorts of things as well. So we're really encouraging. The grant date has been extended to the 31st of August. So we're really trying to push now to make sure that absolutely everyone who's been affected by the fires, and most people will qualify, come forward. We would have normally, if it weren't for COVID, been out and about and been quite visible. We are planning to do some hubs and cafes out in the community in the next couple of months and have a stronger physical presence, and perhaps do some door knocking in Wingecarribee as well, just to make sure we get contact with as many people as we possibly can. I think that's about it.
Excellent. They're very impressive numbers, money. So it's very good, and I'm sure many of our residents and across New South Wales have welcomed those gifts of money to help them recover.
Just one more thing, Mark, I did forget to say, for anyone who's interested in applying for a grant, I think I put the link on the chat, just to go to Red Cross grants page, and you can apply directly from the Red Cross page. Sorry.
I think we've got it on our website, and we'll put it in the
Fabulous.
question and answers certainly as well. So we're making pretty good time. So now I'll call on Tanya Smith from Community Links to talk about the mental health plus health and wellbeing program and service that they're running. So thank you, Tanya.
Thanks, Mark, and thanks for having me. We have 2 services that are bushfire related that we run through Community Links. We run the Recovery Support Service. That's a case management service. It's free, it's confidential, it's for anyone who was impacted by the bushfires, and that could be in any way. It could be loss of property, it could be having been a first responder, it could be just witnessing the event and having to live through it. We can help navigate that process for you. We can look, if you haven't already applied for grants or other services you're entitled to, we can help you with that process. We can look at other services that might need to come into place, or simply sit and listen and to your experience. We're funded through Resilience New South Wales, so we report directly up to the government. So we are your eyes and ears on the ground, so we're really interested to hear what you have to say. There's 3 of us working out in Wingecarribee and one Wallandilly at the moment, myself and my colleagues Michelle and Raylene. We're also really fortunate to have the mental health arm as well through the You in Mind program. So that provides up to 12 free sessions for anyone who's been impacted by the bushfires. And again, those services can be accessed anywhere in the community. I should have mentioned as well the recovery support service. We can come to your home, we can meet at a cafe, you can come to our office over the phone, whatever suits you. We're really fortunate that we came on board just as the COVID restrictions were lifting, so we've been out in the community, which has been fantastic to actually get to meet people and see for ourselves what's been happening. I also wanted to mention another service that operates very similar to us at Community Links, and that is the Department of Primary Industries. They have a rural recovery support service. Henry Goodall is the worker for this region. He's based up near Nowra, and he works across Wingecarribee and Shoalhaven. So he works specifically with primary producers and small landholders, again providing practical and personal support. He also has contacts in the Rural Assistance Authority, the Rural Financial Counselling Service, and the Rural Adversity and Mental Health Program, as well as other service providers. So he's a single point of contact for anyone with for any rural residents. Now I've got all of our contact numbers and websites and links, but I'm thinking the best way for people to find this information, rather than scramble for a pen right now, is you can go to the Wingecarribee Council website because all the links are there. The Community Links website has all of the links, as well as the Department of Primary Industries. That's the best way to find us. You would have received, some of you would have received a letter from us in the mail, and we're also linked through the survey that Mark mentioned as well, that you can indicate you'd like us to get in contact with you.
Thank you, Tanya. I do know Raylene Daly and Elizabeth, so I had a good hour chat with them yesterday, and but yes, they've been on the ground for about 6 weeks now, or 8 weeks or so. Yeah.
Getting up to 7 now, yes.
Yep. So I think learning a lot very quickly. So
we are indeed.
Yes. Okay. Well, that brings us to the end of the updates that we had scheduled for this evening. We will now head over to the question and answer session. And I'll just wait for some instructions to come through.
We haven't got many questions yet, but there is one that we discussed prior around development application fees.
Okay. So we'll just, again, if anyone's got any questions, please put them through. But there's been a question or two relating to development application fees, as well as prioritisation of development applications. So very early in the piece, Council waived all the development application fees that are paid through or by Council or through Council for replacement of buildings. So all the development application fees, construction fees, everything associated with the rebuild has been waived. The state government also waived the fees that are associated with them. So that's the Planning Reform Fund, and there was another one as well. And the long service leave levy was also waived. So pretty much if you're rebuilding a house or rebuilding a shed that was either damaged or destroyed during the fires, there will be no fees attached to that rebuilding. Council made it quite clear when we were considering the waiving of the fees and charges, if someone's seeking an opportunity to expand their use, so if they had one dwelling house and moving forward they wanted to have a dual occupancy as a replacement building, the cost of the extra dwelling would be subject to development application fees. But it would be on that basis. And so if anyone's basically replacing like for like or a little bit larger, there would be no fees attached to that. The other part of that question was, would we fast track them? And yes, we've got a dedicated team of planning staff who, once those applications come in, if you want to discuss them beforehand, by all means, you can make those arrangements through calling the 1-800-316-500 number. Or if you lodge the development application, we have a list of all of the fire affected properties. They will be appropriately marked as fire damaged properties, and they will be fast tracked as quickly as we can deal with those. Obviously, in some areas there are, particularly for residential dwelling houses, we have to assess the building attack, bushfire attack level on the rebuild to make sure that it's compliant with those elements of it. So, but certainly we will be fast tracking those applications.
Okay, the next question we've got is the time frame on the replacement of the burnt Balmoral village sign and melted bus stop.
So the next question is you would have heard that, as you can probably hear it. Look, there's a number of pieces of infrastructure that are yet to be replaced. There's also an insurance claim the council has put in for some of the damage to the public infrastructure. My understanding is the bus shelter at Balmoral is part of that claim, and we're just waiting on that. But hopefully we can get that replaced as soon as we can possibly do so. The signs, and I guess I might be alluding to something, but there has been, and through our early involvement in the community with the Mayoral Relief Fund and so on, and contacting a number of community representatives, it became evident that over a number of years there's been a bit of confusion with lost mail. And as we know, there's a significant suburb up in Sydney called Balmoral, right on the harbour, and so some people have found their mail ending up there. So one of the things that was thought about was, and I know we call it Balmoral Village, is how we accommodate the locality name going forward. And that's a discussion that we want to have with the community before we start putting up new signs that might be replaced in a very short period of time. But so that's something that we will come back to the community. Obviously, up until now, the opportunities haven't allowed us to do that, and obviously many people have got more important things on their mind than to worry about locality names, etc. But that's something that we want to come up and have that discussion with the community. Other signs, traffic management signs and so forth, again, there is a program for rectifying those and replacing those that are damaged.
Okay, so I've got a question around, I'm building less than the previous house, but now have to get a site service report. Is that a council requirement?
So if you're building less than you had before, you still need to get, you need to demonstrate that you've got adequate on-site water disposal, water supply, or electricity supply, and all those sorts of things. So yes, we still need to be satisfied that all those essential services for living are provided to the site. I'm assuming that's the nature of the question. If that's not the nature of the question, whoever put that question in, by all means, add some more to that, and I can see if I can answer it.
I don't have any other questions at the moment.
Well, we don't have any other questions at the moment.
Mark, are you happy if I just raise something, Mark? It's Shane.
Yes, Shane, please.
I'd just like to pick up on comments that were made by Holly and Karen and Tanya, and just reinforce this real need for people in the community that have been affected, or particularly those who have got family or loved ones in the community or neighbours, where they think they might not be accessing, they might think someone is reluctant to check or follow up. Please put us in contact, or please put them in contact with us. We are very keen to ensure that nobody is slipping through the cracks in terms of the offers of assistance or support that might be available given their particular circumstances. And I've got to say, in my experience getting out and about around the state during the fires and after the fires, as someone that was close to the fighting effort, who was involved in a lot of the announcements around support and assistance, I lost track of just how much was being offered and how much was available. So for someone who's been absolutely devastated and impacted by a fire, to even contemplate understanding what that significant assistance package is quite daunting. So we do have the Service New South Wales, we do have the 137788 number that is available. We've started on a program also to deliberately try and reconnect with the more than 10,000 people that have registered and have been working with us in a variety of different assistance and support. We're rechecking with a lot of those people because some of the announcements came after that initial contact. So there may be more support or more assistance that's available given individual circumstances. So I would just reiterate some of those comments earlier about, please, if you know somebody or you think there's somebody that's not getting the access or not getting attention, please put us in contact, or please get them to ring up and register. We'd really love to be able to get out there or make contact with them. And the other thing we're focused on, Mark, is removing the anxiety and the frustration of people connecting with support and having to re-identify themselves over and over again to different callers and take someone through their story and through their journey, where we're looking at very much more of a case management approach to so once Shane rings in and speaks to Mark and works out, you know, my situation and the assistance, then my next contact is going to be with Mark, or Mark's going to ring me back and follow up on my inquiry. So we're just trying to ease that burden or that frustration on the individual, the family, the business, to try and work and understand what might be available and how they can best access it. And I was only down the South Coast again the other day and talking with a fellow who had made that reconnection. He'd spoken to somebody, and he was quite emotional when he told me that someone actually rang him back a few days later and said, "Look, I've revisited your circumstances. There's now this support mechanism that's available." And for him, it was actually pretty significant because he was able to replace his tools that he'd lost in his shed, so he could actually go back and do his work. I think he was a plasterer from memory, but it's academic, his role. But there is proactive support available, and we're trying to reach out and connect again with as many people as we can, but most particularly anyone we think that might not have got the assistance or the support that would be available to them. I think also, if I can just praise the Lang O'Rourke program as well, an extraordinary amount of work, nearly 2,500 properties completed or cleaned up now, which has been quite remarkable given the time frame. Not only have they project managed that extraordinarily well and have been very personable with people and delicate with people in a very difficult environment out in the field, but they've been able to do that. You know, more than 90%, 95%, I think it was, of all contractors doing the work in local areas have been locally engaged to do all the work where possible. And some of the only exceptions to that has been especially around asbestos, which might not be the contractors available in all those areas. So the non-government organisations, Red Cross as well. I met with some of the Red Cross team yesterday, Karen, and they indicated to me of the 216 million that had been raised, 115 million now has been acquitted through grants, and they're expecting to see, you know, that grow to about 167 in grants. They've got another 18 million dedicated to the journey of recovery over the next 2 to 3 years, and another 20 odd million that's going to be targeted into new and emerging needs that are going to come up over the months ahead as we start working through community by community, local area by local area. So there is lots of assistance there from all manner of different bodies, and we just need to make sure we're maintaining connection with the people that need that support. And through the local recovery committees, through council, and through those community groups is the best facilitation to get that access. But the 13 number's there for you as well.
Yeah, no, that's really important. And I think what we found, Shane, was that people did assume that if they registered, it might have been with council that they were fire affected, that all the other agencies sort of took that data and their contact details and whatever. And I think we've learned a lot from this experience. And one of the things that I'm sure has been raised as part of the New South Wales inquiry is that there'd be a database where people can register through that, and we all share that information from federal, state, and local government to be able
Absolutely. Absolutely, and it's certainly coming through loud and clear, and we're keen to invest in that and get that working. And I think the work of Customer Service New South Wales with their website and their information and their 24-hour call centres, that's been a significant change this time around as well. But they're only as good as the information we can all collectively provide them, and things like that database and that single point of registration and focus is going to go a long way to assisting in the efficiency, but most importantly, assisting in reducing that frustration and that despair when people have got to retell their story all the time and reconnect with somebody else. How many times they have to go through this, for someone to connect. And if you've been affected, you don't care whether it's local, state, or federal government or some other body that's coming to help. You've registered, and you hope that help's going to come through.
Yeah, absolutely.
Building on that is one question is there a scope for a widespread media campaign to remind people they can still register with Service New South Wales for assistance?
Yes.
My simple answer to that is yes, there is, and if you can help us promote that, then we'd love it. I mean, we have been issuing stuff over the last few weeks and months, and we'll continue to do that. We're not closing this off as such, but at some point, we're going to be well and truly beyond the impact period. So we're concerned about if there are people out there, we want to know about it now, and particularly coming into the colder periods around temporary accommodation and support for individuals, families, and business is really, really important. We're also trying to promote very heavily through a considered way as well, not just the assistance, but also the promotion of trying to help rural and regional areas. And as a matter of fact, I only met the other night with the Southern Highlands team. Mark, you guys are part of it. It's with the local member Nathaniel. I can't think of his name.
The New South Wales Stakeholders Group.
Yeah, that's it. The New South Wales Stakeholders Group, where there's a real deliberateness to look at new and innovative ways and promote tourism, promote connectedness, promote people getting around New South Wales, spending locally, visiting locally in a COVID-safe way, of course, but trying to recharge and re-energise local economies, local livelihoods, local well-being, because we know we were all ramping up for that leading into Easter, of course, and then everything was just locked down, restricted down because of the COVID implications. So that was pretty heartbreaking for everybody, and just another compounding challenge on what everyone's already been through. So we're trying to get the message out as much as we can, and we'll continue to do that. But it's a bit of a multifaceted message, trying to get people to travel and invest and spend and help local communities, regional and rural communities, re-energise and recover, but also to get out there proactively and make sure that people know the numbers available, know that they can contact. And please, if you think there's someone that's not getting attention, let us know.
Yeah. Thanks again, Shane. Now, just getting back, I saw a few little snippets coming up about the services to blocks and relying on previous services that we might have. I guess if we've got the information, we can make it available, but a lot of the buildings, houses, our buildings and that were destroyed by the fires are quite old, and council may no longer hold those records, or indeed some of them might even be built before council records were even kept. So what we've done is we've identified all the fire affected properties. We've got at our fingertips the files that relate to those properties, should the owners wish to come in and have a look at the file, so they can have a look at what is available, what's not available. But when the Wingecarribee Shire as it is today was made up, now made up of 3 council areas that were amalgamated in 1981. And when those amalgamations happened, a lot of those older files of buildings, etc., that predated 1981 were destroyed, and we may not have them scanned. So that's the difficulty. Sometimes there's not always the records in council to be able to look back and see what is available for that block of land.
Next question, I'm not sure we'll be able to answer, but I'll put it out there. What is the uptake of service support around advocacy and also mental health? Are residents from the southern villages, Wingelow, Penrose and Bundanoon, accessing services? Not sure.
I'm happy to take that one. We have had at least 5 or 6 households from that region access the recovery support service. And just to let people know that we are at the Bundanoon CWA Hall every Monday. So if you are in the area, please drop in and see us. We're happy to chat and see how we can support you.
Thanks, Tanya. And I think Red Cross, I think Red Cross have had some stints down there in the southern villages as well. But we can certainly get in touch with other service providers and see if there's any opportunities for reaching out. Again, as we're moving out of COVID, those opportunities are becoming more available to us as well. And hopefully we can have more face-to-face meetings, etc., in the not too distant future.
We've also got a general comment around free mental health services being available, which includes a link, a website link. So we'll provide that to the people that have registered to be part of today's session. Another question about why we haven't seen or had access to Blaze Aid in our community.
Okay, very early in the piece, so the federal member for Hume, Angus Taylor, was very keen on making those arrangements to have Blaze Aid come into this area, and servicing both Wallandilly and Wingecarribee. One of the criteria for getting Blaze Aid here was that they needed to have at least 20 registered primary producers who lost fencing or equipment, etc., to warrant them coming into the area. And at the time, we didn't have that level of damage to primary producers that were registered. So on that basis, we weren't able to get Blaze Aid into our 2 shires.
Okay, another question is there a focused avenue for those who have not lost any property but have been severely impacted by the trauma of the fires to be given some support?
I'm going to jump in again. Definitely, that's through the recovery support service, we can support you to find the right service, and also certainly the mental health services, both of which you can access via the Community Links website. And we can support you. As I said, it's not just about lost property for the recovery support service, it's any form of impact. And there is an enormous amount of trauma, even just through witnessing the event. It was something that we've never seen before. It was quite horrific, and we are all traumatised. I think Shane said that. There's no one that's not traumatised. So I certainly encourage you to reach out to the recovery support service, to our mental health services, and we will certainly put you in touch with the right people.
If I can just add to that too, Karen from Red Cross here. So at a community level, Red Cross, of course, do an enormous amount of psychosocial support. We're on the ground at all events and memorials, and you'll certainly see a lot of our work when it gets time to the sort of anniversaries and events that will be happening a bit later in the year as restrictions lift. So we work more with the community at a broader level as well.
I think the final question we've got is Council communicating with various authorities in relation to the still vulnerable hilltop community for the upcoming fire season? Might be a question for Amanda. Amanda, yeah. Lawrence, are you still on the
local emergency management committee in preparation for the 2020-21 fire season? What sort of plans are in place or preparing for, I guess, hazard reduction, etc.?
Yes, so RFS will start a lot of their preparedness and awareness work with the community in August. Council is currently working on some projects within the community, And in terms of specifically Hilltop, we haven't targeted specific areas, but any of the villages, any of those villages on bushfire-prone land, anyone that is on bushfire-prone land, we want to work with you. We have tried numerous times over previous years, but up until this year, there was, I don't think people ever contemplated the type of fires and fire event that we have had. So we didn't get very much uptake, but we're ready and raring to go, and look forward to working with everybody out there in the villages. We're working at the moment on a communication plan so that we can make sure that we can access everybody. And also as well as emergency management information on our website. So just, watch this space, and we will certainly be in contact and update the community as we get there.
Thank you, Amanda.
Just got
Yes,
one comment around Quest for Life. So through the generous donation from Marcus Blackmore, the Quest for Life Centre in Bundanoon has fully subsidised places for our 5-day Moving Beyond Trauma program for fire-affected people. So if you can get in touch for that service, it's 1300 941 488, and we'll include that in the information we send out to everyone that's registered for today.
Thanks for that, Petria. I guess just closing off, I guess it is a bit of a sad thing to say, but there are reports which is really concerning from some parts of our shire where there could be some contractors who are trying to scam people into being signed up to do works, etc. We've mentioned it to the local area police, and if you've got any incidences that you're concerned about, that there might be some scammers or whatever happening or working in the area, please contact the Southern Highlands local police at Mossvale. And I guess to be sure, I mean, if you're getting work done, the best thing to do is to make sure that you do get a written quote and that you do get several quotes in order to make a good decision based on your circumstances. But yeah, it's just something that we've been hearing about, and I know, Tanya, your team have also, when I was speaking with them yesterday, mentioned a few people that felt like that they'd been victims of that particular situation. Yep. Okay, look, I think it's now 6:30, so I'd particularly like to thank Shane, Jacinta, Holly, Karen and Tanya for your time presenting tonight and answering questions. Thank you, everyone, all the residents and everyone within the community that joined in tonight. I know there's a few extras out there as well. Hope you found that our meeting valuable. As I said, the questions and answers will be provided on our website as soon as we can get them all down. Just a reminder that our next session will be held on Thursday, the 2nd of July from 5:30 to 6:30 as well. The area that we'll be focusing on is that rebuilding process and updates from council in terms of clean-up, replacement, etc. And we're also hoping to have the Department of Primary Industries and Recovery Officer participate in that meeting. But certainly, if you've got any issues or questions about rebuilding, don't wait until then. By all means, contact council on 1800 316 500 to ask those questions now. So, good evening, everyone, and thank you again for everyone participating. Good night.
Thank you.